As negotiations progress, the hope for lasting peace in Ukraine is beginning to take shape. But behind this prospect of stability, another issue is gaining momentum: the reconstruction of the country. Since the start of the conflict in 2022, the question of economic recovery has been raised. Today, as discussions between major powers intensify, Ukraine's reconstruction is no longer just a humanitarian issue. It has become the biggest market of the century in Europe. Gutted cities, infrastructure reduced to rubble, an economy that collapsed by nearly 30% in 2022. The estimated cost of this revival? Between $500 billion and $750 billion. And this massive project is already attracting a multitude of companies and investors eager to secure the most lucrative contracts. So behind the speeches of solidarity and humanitarian aid, are we witnessing a new battle? No longer military but economic? Who are the real winners of this reconstruction? Who will actually finance this enormous project? And most importantly, will Ukraine be able to maintain its economic independence after accepting such massive aid? That's what we're going to analyze in this report. High-stakes negotiations. While peace talks seem to be progressing, Ukraine itself doesn't have much say in the matter. The major decisions are being made behind closed doors, mainly between Washington and Moscow. Donald Trump, freshly back in the political arena, has promised to end the war. He has even reached out directly to Vladimir Putin, a move that marks a major turning point in the conflict. Meanwhile, the European Union remains a spectator, powerless in the face of the United States' show of strength. The future of Ukraine is thus being decided without its input, a scenario reminiscent of some of history's darker diplomatic episodes. But what will be the conditions for this long-awaited peace? Territorial concessions. Some regions like Donetsk and Luhansk could be permanently lost. A change in government. Moscow is reportedly demanding Zelensky's removal to install a more conciliatory administration. Neutral status for Ukraine. No NATO membership, a drastically reduced army, and close monitoring. These conditions, largely favorable to Russia, suggest a weakened Ukraine, one that will be dependent on those financing its reconstruction. And that's where the economic war begins. A massive debt and American interest. The United States, which has already spent over $600 billion in military and economic aid for Ukraine, does not plan to give this money away. Washington is demanding repayment of $500 billion, but Ukraine doesn't have that amount. So another option is on the table, handing over control of its natural resources to the Americans. Lithium, uranium, oil, gas, rare earth metals. Ukraine is a strategic gold mine for global industries. Trump is pushing to gain control over half of the country's mining resources. Faced with Zelensky's refusal, the pressure is mounting. The U.S. is threatening to cut off future aid if an agreement isn't reached. Meanwhile, European leaders are protesting against these aggressive tactics, but they may have no choice but to follow suit. At the same time, international financial institutions such as the World Bank and the IMF are offering loans, but with strict conditions: massive privatization, opening Ukraine's markets to multinational corporations, and significant public spending cuts. In short, Ukraine risks finding itself economically shackled. A monumental challenge: what needs to be rebuilt? The scale of destruction in Ukraine is staggering. The World Bank estimates the cost of reconstruction at over $500 billion, but the Ukrainian government claims it could be as high as $750 billion. Here's what needs to be rebuilt: over 50,000 kilometers of roads and 1,400 bridges, hundreds of hospitals, schools, and administrative buildings, 60% of energy infrastructure destroyed, including 95% of coal power plants, a devastated agricultural sector, which previously supplied 20% of Europe's grain. Ukraine's once thriving agriculture industry has lost nearly 25% of its production. It will not only need to replant, but also modernize the entire sector with cutting-edge equipment. Additionally, the energy sector is in ruins. The country must not only rebuild its electrical grid, but also modernize it with more efficient and environmentally friendly technology. And once again, foreign companies are likely to seize the most lucrative projects. The battle for contracts has begun. Behind these colossal figures, Companies from around the world are already fighting for their share of the profits. Construction giants are eyeing road and energy infrastructure projects. Energy multinationals want control over the country's strategic resources. Defense contractors are pushing for a modernization of the Ukrainian army. The first contracts are already being discussed. The U.S., through its corporations, intends to take the lion's share of the market, leaving Europe in a secondary role. China is also quietly watching the situation. It could invest heavily in infrastructure and energy, taking advantage of Ukraine's urgent need for capital. In short, the military war is nearing its end, but the economic war is just beginning. A new economic boom or a trap? Is Ukraine on its way to becoming a new economic gold rush for multinational corporations? Or is it doomed to become an economic puppet of the great powers? It all depends on the choices Ukraine's future government makes. Will it give up its natural resources to ease its debt burden? Or will it try to negotiate less restrictive financial support? Time will tell. What is certain is that behind the speeches of solidarity and reconstruction, the financial stakes are enormous. And what do you think? Is Ukraine's reconstruction a genuine humanitarian effort or just an economic opportunity? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth analyses of global economic and geopolitical issues.